The death is back again.
Oh no! It's the second recording of Caps Lock! How could this happen? And now, ladies and gentlemen, drop the quality! But now, get on with it!
I don't get it, Applebloom said, looking at the crowd gathered around the new student. Why'd he act like that? And why does everyone think he's so funny? Skulu asked. Isn't it obvious? He's a very advanced sense of humor. The Cutie Crusaders turned to see Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon eavesdropping on their conversation. The two looked just as smug as ever and pushed past the fillies. And unlike some losers here, he has his cutie mark, Diamond Tiara said, pointing over at her colt's flank. The cutie mark that represented Caps Lock's special talent, of which none knew for sure, looked like the leaves of a four-leaf clover without a stem. Oh my god, it's really 4chan. Back at the story. We're going to introduce ourselves, Silver Spoon said, and the two fillies strutted towards the gathering of colts. The group, which had been laughing uproariously at some of Caps Lock's antics, suddenly went quiet. Hello, Diamond Tiara said, addressing the new student. I am Tiara, and this is Don't Care, Teats, or GTFO, Caps Lock shouted, interrupting the filly. She simply looked at him in shock as the group of colts laughed. Excuse me, what? Diamond Tiara asked shrilly, wide eyes at the colt's ultimatum. What did you ask for? He said, tits or get the fuck out, one of the other classmates replied. Caps Lock looked to the colt angrily and pushed him out of the circle. Banned for offensive comment, Caps Lock shouted. The colt stood up and looked at Caps Lock in confusion. But all I did was say what you said. Permaban! Caps Lock shouted. Arguing with admin. Wait, but thread closed, Caps Lock shouted, and trotted away from the confused group. He made his way past Skulu, Sweetie Belle, and Applebloom, stopping only briefly to size him up. They looked at him warily, hoping he wouldn't have another strange outburst. After a moment, he smiled at them, raised his eyebrows twice, and trotted back into the school buildings. I have a bad feeling about him, Sweetie Belle said to the others. They nodded in agreement before being pushed out of the way by absolutely livid Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon. They stomped into the school building just as the bell rang to mark the end of the recess. Back in the classroom, Charlie had managed to recompose herself, and she sat up straight in her chair. She fumbled clumsily with her desk drawer before standing to address the class. Welcome back, class, she said cheerfully, as she should. I've decided instead of math, you can all just come to the front of the room and tell your classmates how you spent your weekend. Doesn't that sound fun? The class was actually pleased with the change in the lesson plan and began to chatter excitedly. I think Caps Lock should go first, Diamond Tiara said above the noise. After all, he's the new student. Charlie looked at Diamond Tiara with a death glare before mumbling in monotone. Yes, that's a wonderful idea. Caps Lock, can you come to the front of the room? Loving to be the center of attention, Caps Lock rushed to the front of the class. He cleared his throat loudly before speaking in a tone few decibels quieter than usual. I spent my weekend playing Battle Stallion 3. I got my KD up to 3.5. Is that all you did? Play that violent video game? Charlie asked in disgust, appalled by a parent who would buy their colt an M-rated game. Caps Lock thought for a moment, and a last look of inspiration came to his face. And I slept with your mother! Once again, the mature class found the new student's taste of humor absolutely hilarious. The teacher, however, did not. Caps Lock, go to your seat, the teacher shouted, a vein on her forehead throbbing violently. Caps Lock did a small jig, smiling up at the teacher with his almost cartoonish grin before racing back to his seat. Can I go next? Featherweight asked, raising his hoof timidly. Julie's glare changed to a warm smile as she looked at one of her more well-behaved students. Sure, she replied happily. Please go ahead. Featherweight shakily approached the front of the classroom, and Caps Lock blew a loud raspberry. Naturally, laughter followed. Shirley gave an encouraging nod to Featherweight and a death stare to Caps Lock. I visited Canterlot with my parents over the weekend, Featherweight began. The whole while he spoke, Caps Lock mimicked him in a nasally voice. I even got to meet Princess Celestia. War? Pixoid didn't happen, Caps Lock interrupted. Featherweight, whose talent was photography, reached into his bag and removed photographic proof of his encounter with Equestria's ruler. Shopped! Caps Lock shouted, glancing away from the photos. You can tell by the pixels! What? No, those are real, Featherweight objected. I took them myself. That's very nice. Thank you, Featherweight, Shirley said. Can you do me a favor and switch seats with... Caps Lock, what are you doing? The colt had removed a pair of scissors from his school bag and had taken to cutting the back of Sweetie Belle's mane. She turned and screamed when she saw a pile of her own hair on his desk. Caps Lock, sit up here now, Shirley shouted, indicating to Featherweight's desk. Sheesh, no need to yell, Caps Lock said, tossing the scissors back to his bag and slinging it over his shoulder. The teacher nearly exploded. Featherweight made his way cautiously around Caps Lock, and Sweetie Belle cried, trying to look at the damage done to her mane. Shirley stomped to her desk, dropped into her chair, and opened the desk drawer. Class, she said, blandly removing the flask and taking a long drink. It's quite time now. And with that, the teacher's head hit the desk and she slipped off to some magical land where maiming bad students was completely legal. The class sat in silence, wondering if she'd get up, but after a few moments, it became apparent she wasn't. Mods are asleep, Caps Lock whispered, reaching into his bag and removing a strange device. With the click of a button, the screen on the device lit up and the student crowded around his desk. He looked around his audience with an evil grin. So, who here hasn't seen two mares, one cup?
And that was this crap. See you in the next one.